Hey, how we doing?
Doing.
We doing?
Most definitely doing.
Yeah. Well, are we ready to finish this incredibly messed up case? No?
Uh,
Well,
yes, I
too
am.
bad. Okay, good, good, good. All right then. I should probably do our intro. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us on today's episode. Can you repeat that podcast? We're your hosts. My name is Leslie.
My name's Chantelle.
And I am Atlas.
Allow me to give you a mini refresher into part one. And if you haven't listened to it, what are you doing? Why are you starting with part two? Go back to part one and listen to that, then come back to this one.
Beep,
So,
beep, back it up.
exactly. When we last recorded, Sherri had gone missing. Her husband, Keith, Mickey, stop it. Her husband, Keith, was the initial suspect, but was ruled out. Sherri's previous relationships were looked at and discovered some inconsistencies, such as the reason why she wanted insurance from her first husband, according to hubby number one, was to help with complications due to multiple egg donations. And according to current hubby, was due to some heart issues. Sherri was found Thanksgiving Day, 22, I put 22 years later. Oops, typo.
My
22,
God.
22 days later on the side of the road in chains with extensive injuries. And Sherri states two Hispanic women abducted her, and she states she can't remember any details due to being drugged, but the things she does remember kind of don't make sense, such as there's always loud music or TV on, but somehow her captors heard everything she could do, and that she couldn't hear any people or neighbors, but she could hear birds, but can't pinpoint the type of bird or give any description of the birds. When investigators asked Papini how she escaped, she states the two women were arguing when she heard what sounded like a gunshot. One of the women who she said was the younger one, left the apartment for a while and came back, put a pillowcase over her head and put her in the car. Sherri couldn't recall many details about the car ride as she kept falling asleep. The woman stopped the car and told Papini to get out, and once she was out of the vehicle, her abductor sped off. A few days after returning home, investigators had another interview with Sherri in her home with Keith present. During the interview, they received a knock on their front door. Keith stood up from the table to go check to see who was knocking on their door, only to see reporters lined up and down their street. Keith would say in the Hulu docuseries that when Sherri went missing, the goal was to get as much media attention as possible, but that it didn't stop whenever she came home. Cameras were pointed at not only Sherri, but her family, including her two kids, basically 24 hours a day. Not only were reporters or paparazzi everywhere they went, but they would also get phone calls and letters regularly. The phone calls weren't coming only from local news, but larger news stations and even talk show hosts, including Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil, as well as crime watchers Chris Hansen. Investigators seemed to be at a standstill with no new information. All they could do until they had more information was review the information they already had. During this time, the media is going crazy, saying this was a hoax and full of red flags. Tim Scarborough, a local blogger from Reading, started investigating independently and went to the abduction site. In the T intersection where Sherri claims she was abducted, there are 5 houses that could have easily seen the abduction if looking in the right spot at the right time. Though there is greenery around, November would mean most of the leaves and foliage had been gone. So whoever had abducted Sherri was very bold to take someone midday in a very visible area. Scarborough also points out that in the video release of Sherri running towards the highway the morning she was found, doesn't show any constraints, but when Sherri was seen by the trucker and picked up, she had one arm in chains still. I'll send the video now.
Oh, yeah, I've seen this video before.
So
I recognize the thumbnail.
Yeah, so she comes into view initially at 7 seconds. So you can skip to 7 seconds. and she kind of just like disappears, and then she comes back again at 24 seconds. Not a very good video, per usual, but you can see her arms moving whenever she's running.
Suspicious.
I agree. At this point, Scarborough is leaning towards Sherri's abduction being a hoax and even speculating that Keith was in on the whole thing. But his reasoning as to why Keith is in on it is because of the range and how strong his emotions were during the interviews. I said this last episode in part 1, and I will say it again. You really, really cannot judge someone in these situations initially based off of reactions and emotions. Everyone handles and processes things differently, and I'm sure his brain was going 100 miles per hour, thinking about his wife, his kids, and family in general. I'm sure he had people telling him to start planning a funeral, others holding out for hope, and thinking about how the possible death of his wife would impact their children growing up. Though not my partner, I had someone I was very close to who I considered to be a second grandfather. He was a close friend of my grandparents, and he was our next door neighbor for a really long time. I'm not going to get on my soapbox, but I did love him very much. But he went missing after going to the lake and was found dead at the bottom of the lake. I can't remember if it was a few days or like a week after, to be honest. It was a mess, honestly, but he took his own life. He was not my life partner, and I remember being pulled in every direction mentally. I would have like friends and family trying to be positive and make, everyone involved feel better. But then I had a coworker who literally said, he's probably dead, so you should prepare yourself. So
Oof.
it's a lot. And when I was told initially that they found his body, I don't think I really had a reaction initially, to be honest. I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure I just was like, okay, so what now? And then
Yeah.
like an hour later sobbing. And then I remember I went to that house to go get a few things, and I was fine. This was months later, and I saw his mailbox and just started crying. So
Mhm.
it's just, and it was because it had his handwriting on it. So these things, it bugs me whenever people say, their emotions are weird. They didn't cry enough, or they cried too much. Like, you just can't. It doesn't trigger red flags for me personally. So, me. I also know how this ends. So it's another me.
Grieving isn't a uniform, universal thing, and I don't
Mm-mm.
get people who think that it is.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I said last, I think I compared it to a roller coaster. There's ups and downs and twists and turns, and random things can set you off. And, your body, you can just go into, I'm a, what can I do right now to make it better type of person. And then I'll deal with the emotional part later type of thing. So, like I said, throughout the documentary and Hulu and Reddit and internet people doing what internet people do, there's a lot of like, I think he had something to do with it. I personally don't, but it drives me a little crazy, won't lie. But anyway, Scarborough posts his evidence and theories, and I say evidence with quotations around it, to social media, and within 24 hours, he has tens of thousands of reads and views. During this, Keith does see these posts and speculation doubting his wife's story, to which he would find himself agreeing that some of the suspicions people were having were kind of strange, but would say in the docuseries listed in the show notes, but you didn't see her. He says that since day one, he allowed the investigators access to their personal lives, but they couldn't find anything, and oh my gosh, okay, all that was left was, quote, a broken body. He says those comments were just noise, so he would try his best to tune it out. As well as negative comments and suspicion, there was commentary from the other side who saw Sherri as a victim of a horrible assault. Not only were there keyboard warriors defending her in the comment sections, but Elizabeth Smart, a kidnapping survivor, would also advocate for Sherri's story. Y'all know who Elizabeth Smart is?
I actually don't think I do.
The name
She
sounds familiar, but I don't know why.
We'll have to do like her story is probably two-parter as well. She was kidnapped whenever she was 14 and held for 9 months, being sexually and physically abused. So she got out, she escaped, but yeah, she was held for 9 months. It's her story is wow. She deserves all the good things in life. But she even went on news saying, like, oh, well, you can't judge her for the way she's reacting to things. And she would say, like, whenever she was imprisoned basically for 9 months, the only thing that kept her going was her family. So she's sure Sherri felt the same. So it's looking back is very upsetting. Sherri started going to therapy twice a week to help work through her trauma and possibly unlock any new memories. Her therapist would suggest Sherri write a book about her experience as a way to capture the memories and tell her story. This is how the book titled 22 Days was written. 22 Days is a book written by Sherri describing the events and details of her abduction in her own words. I did try to find it, but I don't know if maybe I wasn't using the correct search terms or it wasn't actually published and it was just like a personal project, but I don't know. Sherri gave the two women names in the 22 Days book that she wrote. The older, forgot about this part. The older, more aggressive woman she called Smegma, and the younger, more timid woman she called Taint. I I had never heard
So sorry.
I had never heard of the name or word Smegma. And I did know what taint refers to, but I was like, no way she named that one taint. So I looked it up. So prepare yourself for cringe and grossness. According to Very Well Health, smegma is the harmless accumulation of skin oils, skin cells, sweat, and other fluids within folds of the genitals. It is commonly found under the foreskin of a penis, around the clitoris, or on the folds of the labia. Smegma has a crumbly, cheese-like consistency and a generally unpleasant odor. And just so we are covering all bases here, taint could be a couple different things, but since she named the first woman after dick and vag cheese, sorry, family, friends, coworkers, and whoever may be listening to this episode, taint is the region between the genitals and the arsehole. So
Nice.
I have many questions about this woman, but she could say woman A, woman B.
Nah, that's too easy.
Smegma it is.
Well, I meant for our purposes, we should probably stick to, well,
I don't mention it again. I'll tell you
Okay.
that because it's
Okay, good.
disgusting. And I wish I had a recording of my face when I Googled that. I'm definitely on a watch list.
Is your Google history?
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Honestly, as a dog groomer, all I'm gonna say is one of those words is thrown out
No way.
probably on a daily basis on purpose. It's like the word moist is to some people. It is to us. So, yep, yep, hate it. Hate all of it.
Yeah. I don't think this woman has a rational thought in general, but I feel like that was extra. But we will see she's a very extra woman.
Can't wait.
We are now at day number 5. I know it seems like we're further down the road, but it's only been 5 days since Sherri was found. To escape the media, friends of the Papini family allowed them to spend time at their, I'm assuming, vacation house in Mount Shasta. During this time, investigators had another interview with Sherri and Keith. Thankfully, this interview seemed to give a little more information than the previous ones. Sherri told investigators that the bigger woman was the one who cut her hair and burned her, saying she felt the abductor enjoyed inflicting pain on her, whereas the smaller one wouldn't participate. The investigator asked Sherri about how she received the burns specifically. I'm going to read directly from justice.gov court documents some again. Sherri stated she received the brand at one time. She described the clicking sound similar to tinking of a metal pan, like if you were watching a show where they were removing a bullet from someone and dropping it into a pan. Papini had a hard time remembering the details because she was in so much pain. The detectives asked Sherri if she was held down. Papini responded, I wasn't necessarily held down, it was my arm. Like I couldn't pull up. Papini did not know what her abductors used for the heat source. Papini offered up the possibility that it could have been a craft tool of some sort that was used to brand her, but she never saw it. Papini suspects that the tool was smaller than a fire poker, more like the size of a screwdriver. Sherri would write in her book, 22 Days, that she could hear her skin bubbling and sizzling and could smell the burning. When asked about what she was given to eat, she would describe cream of wheat, but dry and barely mixed. Once she was given 2 apples, a weird cracker, scraps of, she says, like, quote, the fat off of a piece of meat or something, a piece of bread, and mostly tortillas and homemade gritty Spanish rice. Sherri also informs detectives that she did try to escape, but each time she tried, she would be punished physically. Papini explained that after she tried to escape by ripping the board off the window, her abductors put a chain around her waist and tethered her to a cable attached to a pole in the closet. She could reach the bed, but not the door or window. Papini tried to get the chain that was around her waist down over her hips, but her abductors caught her trying to do this and tightened the chain. It was the cable that was attached to the pole in the closet that made noise when she moved. Papini stated, the pole is the only reason I was there. Papini tried to rip the pole out of the closet, which caused her hands to bleed and fingernails to break when she tried to get the screws out. Sherri describes the bathroom saying it had a high-pressured shower. The shower light had colored speckled tile with a crack in it. There was no shower curtain, and the shower head was chrome and, quote, inexpensive. I'm not sure why she needed that last part in there, but whatever. Okay, we're done with court documents for the moment, and we were going to heavily focus on Keith and Sherri's family's point of view for a bit. Once returning home, Keith says Sherri had a hard time making eye contact with people, including her own family, and wouldn't go anywhere without Keith at her side. She would make plans to see family members, but would not go if anyone she didn't know would be there, saying she wasn't ready to be around those she didn't know well and refused to meet anyone new. For the next few months, Keith says the family went dark. They stayed home as much as possible and in constant fear of someone coming to finish the job or take their children. To help ease some stress, security cameras and gates were installed outside and inside the home, blankets covered windows. Keith says, quote, whatever I could do to help her feel more comfortable, we did. If the children went outside and an unknown car or person was lingering too long they didn't recognize, Sherri would rush the kids inside, not only due to fear of being physically hurt in any way, but also to avoid photos of their children being taken. He says the nights were rough. Sherri could not sleep with the lights off. However, a lamp or a nightlight was not sufficient. Sherri would need the overhead light on. Sherri would have nightmares, waking up screaming and inconsolable. Sherri's sister, Sheila, would sometimes go with her to therapy if Keith wasn't able to. She states Sherri would curl up into a ball, scream, or cry. Every time there was a breakthrough in therapy, Sherri would discover something else would trigger her, and the cycle would repeat. Keith's aunt, Pamela, they call her Pam, states they would take so many precautions to not trigger or upset Sherri, but it always seemed as if there was something to upset Sherri, like loud noises, closed doors, her mailbox, but also things like black beans, mariachi music, anyone with dark curly hair, or anyone who looked like they could belong to the Hispanic or Mexican culture.
I mean, to be fair, mariachi music upsets me too.
I guess if you did listen to it on repeat constantly, I guess I could see it, but I don't know. I mean, to be fair, I've never been.
Kidding.
I know.
So.
To be fair, I've never been held hostage, so I don't know if Black Beans, mariachi music, or anyone with similar features would set me off to the point of what they described would set her off. But Keith actually gives an example of how easy she was to set off by closing a door. And I mean, he like closes it softly. Like if someone was sleeping and you went to go close the door, like it still makes a little sound most of the time, like a little thump, but barely. He said that that sound would trigger her and she would go into screaming and crying fits. She'd also require someone to go to the bathroom with her because she did not like the doors shut at all. She'd also need someone to be in there while she showered, but you were not allowed to lock the door because even the sound of the lock, like the little lock that's built into the doorknob, was twisted and you heard little tick, that would set her off as well. Due to her captors drugging her food, Sherri refused to eat anything if she didn't know the person and didn't see it being made. Even if her husband or her sister made the food and brought it to her in the next room, If she did not watch, she would not eat it. At this point in time, Sherri was just existing. She would stare at a wall, zoned out and emotionless. He says her kids would come up to her wanting attention and she just kind of looked past them. He also says that while he was at work, Sherri would have the children do things he was doing for her, such as calming her during her episodes. He said that one day he came in from work and Sherri, I think he said, was on the floor. I don't have this written down, so I'm going off memory. But so Sherri was on the floor and her son was in front of her, like tapping on her knees, like alternating to try to distract her and keep her calm. And at this time, he was, I mean, I think he's 11 today, this year at least. So this was like 2016, 2017. So he was little. Keith would say that while he understood that she couldn't control her episodes, he would ask that she go into another room or away from the children, even if that meant, if that was crying in a different room or screaming into a pillow. He just didn't, he said that it bugged him whenever she would have these episodes in front of the children and not attempt to remove herself.
Mm-hmm.
A year later, there are more questions and answers, but Sherri seems to be feeling better emotionally and wanted to have a gathering of her friends and family to answer any questions they still may have. During this, Sherri wanted to hear the stories about how each of them found out she was alive. Keith says one story from their friends, Ryan and Lauren, had a particularly emotional story which was actually captured on camera. Ryan was standing in the driveway of their house. I'm assuming he was practicing his golf swing or like correcting, but Lauren comes outside through what I think is the garage door of the house saying they found her. The couple start crying and hugging. Sherri played the recording in front of everyone present and explained that the reason she couldn't remember anything was because she was drugged. Family and friends took turns sharing what they did in the time she was missing and how they contributed to trying to find her. Meanwhile, Sherri seemed to be taking it all in. Keith says it was nice to have everyone together, but the reason they were together felt weird and awkward, which I don't blame him. That is kind of strange.
It's a little bit weird and kind of, well, how did you know I was missing? Well, how did you know that? That's just a weird thing to talk about.
Yeah, what did you do to try to find me? Wow, you all love me so much. Just strange. From this point until the next date that I give, I don't have exact dates. But again, it's largely Keith, friends, and family's point of view. Eventually, Keith confides in Sherri's therapist saying he feels guilty, but that he doesn't always believe the things Sherri is telling him. The therapist reassures him, saying that Sherri's stories never change, and at the end of the day, you can't fake the kind of injuries and psychological damage Sherri has received. The psychologist asks Keith, "Do you think she's capable of that?" And after a moment of silence, Keith says yes. He looked at their past together, counting the lies she had fed him and the manipulation of people around her. For example, Sherri had 2 long scars across her back, almost as if she had wings. I'll send the picture. Keith tells a story saying prior to their marriage, when he asked about the 2 scars, Sherri told him that they were caused by an ex-boyfriend named James who used to hurt her. She says he took 2 knives and stabbed her in the back. However, Sherri told her best friend Jennifer a different story, saying she received the 2 scars from her father, who held her down and cut her with an X-Acto knife. At some point after that, Jennifer says Sherri admitted to her that she had done that to herself when they lived together years prior. Keith is starting to really question his wife and what she's capable of, and starts asking her questions about the subject he's confused about, to which Sherri would reply, "I'm sorry, that was your first wife." He was never married before. So this is, or he speculates, this is her way of saying, I'm not that person. That was me before what happened. She'd also tell him, I'm not capable of lying anymore. All of this was causing him to struggle with himself, feeling guilty for not believing his wife, and wondering what kind of damage this could cause if she wasn't lying. He's teeter-tottering between I believe you and I don't. He decided from that point forward that whatever she needed to heal, he would make happen. The family started traveling across the country and being away from their town as normal people and not the Papini family seemed to help heal Sherri a bit. While Sherri was finally making progress towards normalcy, the damage done to their children seemed to show more. If Sherri seemed to be any distress, her children would react, and this really upset Keith. There's a video in the Hulu documentary, which this documentary is so well done. If you have Hulu and you have like 3-4 hours of a day to waste, it is so, so good. Because this happened so recently, really, there's so much documentation and there's so many home videos and pictures. And they're during this documentary, they're having him watch like the interview tapes and all kinds of stuff and getting his perspectives, which I really like that it's more catered towards him and their kids and their family compared to her. But anyway, he was determined to find out who did this to his family. During the interviews Sherri had previously done with the investigators, Keith would take notes of the conversation and ask questions he could think of. Through the series of questions, he had drawn a layout of the house Sherri was taken to based off the answers to those questions. Sherri was very specific regarding the house layout, the closet she was chained to, and the furniture in the room with her. The table she was bent over and branded on, she described as a very thin coffee table with a gray marble pattern. Keith started researching and he found what he thought was it and showed Sherri, and she said, yes, that was it. So he sent the photo that I just sent y'all to the FBI agents. I'm also going to send a picture that was in the documentary of what Sherri described her prison to be for the 22 days to give an idea of like the closet specifically, what she was explaining or describing. It's a pretty table. I'd use it.
It's a nice table. Yeah.
It is. It is a nice table. Neutral color goes with everything. Won't show stains really.
Also, I cannot say that I have, knock on wood, been stabbed before. But those are not stab marks on her back.
I
That is
know.
all.
I think of like whenever I read that, someone coming behind her, a knife in each hand, just like Wolverine style, like through the back. I don't know.
Yeah, as someone who gets mutilated all day by dog nails and teeth, that is, let me tell you, that is not a stab mark.
And some cat scratches.
Yeah, that looks like a dog nail. Just like it's not.
Mhm.
It is not a stab mark.
The FBI agents state in the docuseries that Keith was always trying to find more information to help his wife abductors be caught and requested a sketch artist to help get the image of the women into the public. So, side note, I got ahead of myself in the first Instagram post, and I did post the sketch of the women in that post. I'll probably include it again on the second one, as well as the scratches on our back, the table, and any other photos that I have throughout this. But I did get ahead of myself, so I'm sorry. It's in the Instagram post already in part 1, but I'll make sure it's in part 2 post as well. Sketches of the two abductors were released 10/25/2017 and caused a massive wave in the Hispanic and Mexican communities. Tips and accusations came from every direction and every corner of the United States. Online and in person, the hate for the Hispanic and Mexican cultures and communities increased, with people posting threatening comments. The comments ranged from build the wall to shoot them being Hispanics or Mexicans or people who present as such, in the head and get it over with. Women who even remotely resembled the sketches were scared to be in public or to be out in groups of 2 or more. So overall, the accusations Sherri made were very damaging and harmful to those communities. It also brings up the white woman syndrome because there was so much coverage and money put towards finding her. It was not a good thing per se. I'm not really sure how to explain what I'm trying to say, but I think y'all get it.
Mm-hmm.
So during all this, the internet sleuths do what they do, and hold on, wait.
Waiting on the edge of my seat.
Okay. Sorry.
It's okay.
I moved a couple of parts to different areas because they just make more sense. So during all this, internet sleuths do what they do and dug up a blog post titled Keep Walking, written by Sherri Grafe, I think is how the last name is pronounced, from 2007. Grafe is her maiden name. I'm going to just read this description of the post directly from the court documents. Prepare yourself. The post appeared to have been written sometime in 2007. In the post, Grafe detailed how she grew up in Shasta Lake, California, was a good athlete, but was picked on in high school by a group of Latinos. The post states, I used to come home in tears because I was getting suspended from school all the time for defending myself against Latinos. The chief problem was that I was a drug-free, white, and proud of my blood and heritage. This really irked a group of Latino girls, which would constantly rag and attack me. The post detailed how Grafe fought the girls and how it took 3 full-size men to pull me off her. I broke her nose and split her eyebrow. The post goes on to explain why it was titled Keep Walking, because Grafe's father told her how proud he was of her after the fight with the other girls, and that she kept walking when her shin was split open as a result of the fight. Grafe concluded with the post saying, being white is more than just being aware of my skin, but of standing behind my skinheads who are always around in spirit as well, and having pride for my country. Detectives told Papini it appeared the post was originally written on a MySpace page. When the detectives asked Papini if she had a MySpace account, Papini stated that she did not remember. Papini told detectives that prior to her kidnapping, she was hired an attorney to try and get the post removed. Papini said she believed someone else had written the post using the surname Sherri Grafe and described the post as awful. So Grafe is her maiden name. I can't remember if I said that. I'm sorry.
God.
Sorry, proud of my what heads now?
Yeah.
Okay, MySpace was the shit. How do
This
you
is-
not remember you didn't have a MySpace account?
I did not have a MySpace account.
What?
Sorry, I gotta go.
I was born in 99,
I don't know if
Oh,
we can be
right.
friends anymore.
but you'll know that I'm a baby.
Just a baby.
I mean, I'll just age myself here a little bit. I had a Zanga.
A what?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
The Zanga was before MySpace.
Oh shit.
It was an online blog. And I had a Zanga. Like I said, aging myself there just a little bit.
Was it
I
as
like-
cool as MySpace?
MySpace was where you started to have like friends lists and stuff, and Zanga you did too, but it was much more blog structured.
Okay.
I just missed the MySpace. I mean, there were people my age who had MySpace, but I personally did not. I had Facebook. I mean, I still have Facebook. Yeah.
I loved MySpace.
I do. I'm a little jealous that I missed out on MySpace because it sounds dope. I kind
It
of
was
want,
such a good era.
can we bring MySpace back? Because I want to put music to my profile and post cringy
Hell yeah.
things. So, I mean, I do that on Facebook, but not quite as cool. So I'm a little jealous that maybe if I was born a year or two earlier, I'd be more I would have been more into the MySpace scene, but I got a little FOMO. Anywho, Keith was aware this post existed, but Sherri was adamant that it was someone out to make a bad joke on her and had contacted authorities to have, sorry, not contacted authorities, contacted a lawyer to have the post removed. Keith also
Sure.
points out that some of the details, such as her parents owning a pizza shop, is false, but still couldn't understand how this was just a bad joke. There were details that were off. I don't know. The
There's a lot
post,
about that post that's off.
yeah. So I didn't look up the actual post because I don't want to like fuel the website or the blog or whatever it was that she posted on. So I did not look it up, but they did show, I believe, a screenshot or something of the post in the documentary, and there's literally a picture of her. I don't know if that could have been added in for the documentary. I'm not sure. I didn't look it up. I don't want to research that specifically. I don't think that needs any more attention than it already has, most likely. But and if it means anything, investigators believe that Sherri did write the post. So
Mhm.
if that's not saying something, I don't know what is. Unfortunately, there wouldn't be any more movement in her case until the summer of 2020, when Keith received a call from detectives requesting he and Sherri meet at the FBI office. On August 13th, 2020, the couple met with investigators and were told the unknown DNA on Sherri's clothing had come back with a familial match. Whoever had abducted Sherri, their DNA came back as a partial match to someone in the abductor's family whose DNA was pinged. So that sentence was kind of confusing, but did that make sense?
Yes.
You know, say a cousin or an aunt or a parent. Their DNA was submitted for something and it pinged as a partial match. So they can look at that family and see whose DNA matches through tests. You would think that Sherri would be ecstatic. But instead, she stayed pretty quiet with her hands in her lap, silent. And we know this because it's all recorded. So you can watch this on YouTube. The documentary has it laid out very nice as well. I can't say enough about the documentary. It is so good. So if you're going to watch anything on it, watch that. Anyway, investigators would tell the couple that they traced the familial DNA back and linked it to someone who was actually involved in Sherri's life many years prior. And 3 days prior to their meeting on the 10th, on the 13th. Nope, math was right the first time. 3 days prior to their meeting, on the 10th, the investigators traveled to the suspect's home about 600 miles from the Papini residence and took a drink bottle from their trash can. They used the bottle to run a DNA test, which came back as a match to the DNA samples found on Papini the day she was found. The suspect cooperated with police and allowed them to look inside their home. Investigators matched the layout of their home and the drawings Papini made of the closet and bathroom to this home. Investigators showed the photos of the closet and the bathroom to Sherri and Keith. Keith says, "I haven't even looked at the picture yet, but I've seen enough already." The tone in his voice was cheerful, and he doesn't seem like he can sit still due to the excitement to see they found the place and possibly the person who abducted his wife. Sherri, on the other hand, seems to be more confused and says, quote, "It's a little bit different, but it's pretty similar, but it's different," end quote. Investigators show the couple another photo. I'm going to send this to you now. At first glance, this photo seems incredibly random. It's someone sitting in a big old beanbag chair, pillows covering their face. But y'all see that in the bottom right-hand corner? It's a table. It looks very
That is
similar.
the same style table.
It
or at least the
is-
same top.
Yep. It is the same style, same table that was provided to the FBI agents on August 14, 2017.
It looks different, except it isn't.
Exactly. The suspected abductor confirmed that that was their table, which they had recently trashed due to damage. Back to the meeting of the Papinis and the investigators 3 days after this, investigators tell the couple that they've confirmed this is the house Sherri was held at, to which Keith pumps his arm like a hell yeah and says yes, while Sherri rests her elbow on her knee and her chin on her hand. Keith is rubbing his hands on his pants, touching Sherri's arm, and seems to be so happy the nightmare is coming to an end. Investigators said that they had confirmed with people related to the suspect who knew she was there and someone in the area who had seen Sherri in or around the house. At this point, investigators tell Sherri they can continue this conversation with or without Keith. Sherri looks to Keith and asks if he would like to step out or stay in the room with them, to which he says he'd like to stay. Sherri asks to have a few minutes to talk to Keith alone. Investigators left the room and Sherri turns to Keith. Keith tells her, quote, "You need to stop what you're doing right now and tell me the truth." Sherri whispers through tears, "I don't want them to find her." To which Keith says, "Explain to me right now who investigators think this guy is." Explain to me right now who the guy is. Sherri's adamant she doesn't know who the man's DNA could be and that she doesn't want investigators to find the smaller abductor who helped save her life. Keith keeps repeating to Sherri to tell him what's going on, and Sherri says without tears, I may add, just putting that out there, "Look at how they're being right now. They're fucking with you." Talk about master manipulator. Keith is like a very supportive partner, honestly, at least from what I have seen. And he tells her that if she does not want to press charges against the smaller abductor, lady number 2, that she needs to tell him everything. And at that time, investigators come back into the room. They were listening because there's cameras and audio and everything, and they didn't want anything to be more twisted than it already is. So, who did this photo belong to? Whose DNA was on Sherri's clothing? Whose table was this? The DNA did not lead investigators to a female but none other than Sherri's ex-boyfriend, James Reyes, who informed investigators of everything that had happened the 22 days she had been missing. Strap in, Shanty, buckle yourself, prepare yourself, whatever you got to do, because this is a lot.
I'm sorry, what?
Yep. So her ex-boyfriend, I think they dated, I didn't write down the date, but it was before she met Keith, before she had kids.
Oh my God. Okay.
So Reyes tells detectives that Sherri was a good friend who asked him for help. So he did. Sherri told Reyes that Keith was beating and raping her, but though she had filed police reports, they weren't doing anything about it. Cough, cough. There were no police reports because this wasn't happening. Sherri approached Reyes with a plan. She advised him to purchase prepaid phones so they could communicate in a way that couldn't be easily traced as their personal cell phones via letters she mailed him. She had shipped Reyes a care package with instructions to rent a car and drive to a location of where they would meet. That location was her abduction site. The day of November 2nd, 2016, Reyes would meet Sherri at that location, unlock the car door, and she would willingly and voluntarily get into the back seat and lay down after setting her phone on the ground where Keith would later find it. The two went straight back to California, only stopping to grab food, drinks, or gas. And Reyes would say there wasn't much conversation, and when Sherri was speaking to him, she was having a hard time with leaving her kids behind. Sherri would stay in the bedroom while Reyes would go to work and sleep on the couch. Reyes states after a few days of her being there, she asked him to seal the window and she had cut her hair. Reyes states Sherri was losing weight intentionally, eating whatever he did, but much smaller portions. He stated to investigators that she was already a small person, but that she wanted to lose weight, so he did not question her. So now we get into the more extensive injuries, and it's important to note that at this time, details about Sherri's injuries were not publicized. There was no public knowledge of the extent of her injuries. Reyes states he never laid a hand on Sherri or hit her, though at her request did assist in creating some of the injuries. Sherri would ask Reyes to shoot a hockey puck into her body, to hold his hockey stick up while she ran directly into it to break her nose, and instructed him to go to Hobby Lobby, which is a popular craft store, to pick up a wood burning kit. Reyes says that Papini never complained about the pain. Papini made sure that Reyes only used cash when purchasing items that would be used for the self-inflicted injuries and made sure they were thrown away after. But Reyes was able to take detectives to the Hobby Lobby and show them the tool used, and the letters that came in the kit matched the size and font of the letters branded into Sherri. A day or two before Thanksgiving in 2016, Papini asked ex-boyfriend to take her back home as she missed her children. Reyes asked his friend to rent a car and he would drive the 600-ish miles back home, or drive her the 600-ish miles back home. Sherri brought a backpack with her, which we now know had the chains she was found wearing in. Reyes confirmed that he didn't own a television and wasn't aware of how massive the coverage of her disappearance was, but that Sherri did have a phone and was aware of how much attention her disappearance was receiving. Reyes told investigators that once he realized how big her case was, he was surprised and thought to himself, quote, "I'm not going to make any calls because it's like I'm turning myself in for nothing," but was aware due to the allegations Sherri was making, eventually detectives would show up. Reyes confirmed that since driving Sherri back to her town, he has not spoken with her and was not aware of the monetary awards until much later after her return. Here's some more proof coming directly from the court documents that link Sherri to Reyes and backs his story. Reyes's work schedule shows him off work on the days he normally wasn't off, which lined up with Sherri's disappearance and return dates. Reyes confirms there were no Hispanic women involved, and he passed the polygraph test.
What? There were no Hispanics involved? How can this be?
She's just a massive racist. Who would have thought?
No, the post about skinheads wasn't really her.
No, absolutely not. There's more evidence that I'll get to momentarily, and then there's even more than that in the court documents. So, Shanty, you were very quiet. Is your brain okay?
No. No. This makes me angry.
Yeah. Yeah. She orchestrated the whole thing, supposedly. at this point, supposedly. And then she watched her husband go cry on national TV, watched her pregnant sister assist in searches, watched her parents ask for their child back.
Okay.
There's a word for people like her that I can't say, or else we'll get
Yeah.
banned from YouTube.
Uh-huh.
And then, not only that, everything was self-inflicted. She literally ran into a hockey stick to break her nose,
Oh my God.
had him shoot pucks at her.
Soiling the secret hockey stick.
Mm-hmm. All of this is being told to Sherri and Keith. Sherri then admitted she made the whole thing up. Just kidding. She did not do that.
My God, Leslie, stop this.
Keith is silent, and Sherri states, so James is involved. Investigators continue to present evidence of the burner phone, the mailed instructions. Investigators also remind Sherri that it's a crime to lie to federal officers, to which she says, I think we need my lawyer. This isn't making any sense. Keith asks to speak to a detective outside. The detective follows him and basically tells him, like, hey, you need to watch out because she may try to kill herself, and goes back in the room. Poor Keith is just confused, and his whole world and view of his wife just shattered within seconds. I'm sure that meeting did not go how he was planning for it to go, because in his head, they found the person who took his wife. He just didn't expect it to be his wife. Sherri, at this point, is sobbing, saying she loves her husband and continues to try and play the I won't have her, the abductor, arrested card. So, what happens now? Sherri and Keith leave the building.
Why? Okay.
You heard that correct, Shanty. At this time of the story, she's a free woman, but why is that? Well, that's because Sherri continued to push the false narrative that she was kidnapped by two Hispanic women, and until investigators can prove that she is in fact lying, they can't do anything. If she would have admitted to the investigators, okay, you caught me, they could arrest her then. But at this point in time, they couldn't do anything. Keith told Sherri she couldn't stay at the house, and as he couldn't wrap his head around what had just been told to him, and her repeating, I love you, and trying to justify everything happening was too much. Sherri called Pam, Keith's aunt, saying Keith had kicked her out and asked if she could stay there, and obviously not knowing what was going on, Pam said yes. Meanwhile, Keith dropped the kids off at his parents' house to try and navigate the situation he was placed in. The following day, Sherri would call and text Keith telling him how heartbroken she is that he wouldn't even hear her out, and the information given wasn't as it seemed. Keith went to talk to a father figure and asked for advice as to how and what he would do in that situation. His friend explained to him that Keith had just been handed an alternate version of the story, and if he were a kidnapper that had just been caught, he wouldn't say, oh yeah, you caught me, when approached by police. There was no solid proof as to what happened on either side, so he could cut her out of his life or support her until there is proof. If she had been kidnapped and what she's saying is true, could he live with the fact that he abandoned his wife and took the mother away from their children? That's a sticky situation I would not want to be in.
No.
That's a hard one.
That is.
Keith is really an MVP because he ultimately decided to support his wife, which is so nice. And everything I have seen, he's just a great partner. But man, what a mind fook. I don't think I could do that, to be honest with you. That's a lot. Without strong evidence and no confession from Sherri, investigators brought on FBI Special Agent Courtney Lanto late 2020. Her job was to find the evidence investigators may have missed to prove Rhea's statements as true by reviewing case information, old interviews, social media links, etc. This is wild. This whole thing is wild, but this is wild. While digging into Sherri's social media, she found a secret Pinterest board made by Sherri, which contained a board of saved wood burning and branding equipment. That was all that was in it. But again, investigators didn't feel there was enough evidence to go after Sherri until the prepaid phone records were looked at. Phone records for both prepaid phones showed 29 phone calls to only each other, as well as text messages up to the day Sherri went missing. Prepaid phone number 1 primarily pinged near Rhea's home, while prepaid prepaid phone number 2 primarily pinged towers near Sherri's home. The day of Sherri's disappearance, the prepaid phone pinged at the location near her house, but then showed it traveling down to Southern California. During the time it took to gather enough evidence to take Sherri to court, Keith would say there was a weird tension in the household, understandably. He said Sherri was on edge more at that time, and they would argue a bit more. In the Hulu documentary, Keith tells a story about how one day when he was doing something outside for Sherri, she went to move an empty wheelbarrow. She moved it about a foot when she sat it down, taking deep breaths and strange pauses as if she was out of energy and out of breath, and asked Keith to finish doing that task. She started telling him how he didn't understand what she was going through and how she needed an outlet for, I don't know, things, I guess. Though he didn't usually say anything, he responded to her saying, "It's a horrible thing that has happened and we will never forget it, but can we go one day without hearing it?" To which she responded, "And I would have lost my shit. I would have committed murder. I have to live with the fact that you never found me."
Oh, okay.
Nope. Even if I had stuck around beforehand, that would be the point where I noped out.
That gets under my skin so bad I have chills right now. You're right. I never found you in the situation that you made, that you put me in. I have to live with the fact every day that you lied to me about probably every single thing and watched me cry and plead for you to come home on national television. You know, I have to live with the fact that I had the FBI and local authorities investigating me for possible murder. I had to live
My
with the fact that you
God.
abandoned our children and me. Oh, I would have murdered her. Oop,
Honestly, like, sick.
Yeah, that's just straight up disgusting.
I have not, I keep getting chills just thinking about that. I'll tell y'all something at the end of this too that makes that even worse. But March 3rd, 2022, 19 months since the FBI confronted Sherri, they made plans to arrest Sherri for fraud and lying to federal officers. Ideally, they wanted to make sure the children weren't involved, but when Sherri left her home in a hurry, they noticed that her children were with her. They followed her into town to the music school. In order to try to keep the children away from what was about to happen, FBI agent Courtney went into the music school and asked if Sherri drove a black Kia Optima and that someone had bumped into her car outside. Sherri gasped and jumped up and ran out the door where investigators arrested her outside. Unfortunately, her children did follow her outside, so they saw the whole thing.
Oh, shit.
So, yeah.
So happy for a moment. I was like, yeah, that's the way to. Oh.
Yeah, so she threw the phone and keys to her son and told him to call their father. Keith had just arrived home when he received a call from Sherri, but when he answered the phone, it was their children's piano teacher saying the FBI had arrested Sherri and they come pick up his children. News and media outlets started reporting immediately. Keith's phone started ringing off the hook, family members calling and trying to figure out what was going on. Keith says in the documentary, "It was the first time that I was afraid to answer somebody's question of did she do this?" because he was unable to give an answer. Family members, friends, the community, and the nation in general were shocked and angry. Sherri was charged with mail fraud for taking over $30,000 in donations and government assistance, as well as making false statements to law enforcement. 5 days after being arrested, Papini was released on $120,000 bail. After being released, Sherri contacts Keith and asks him to meet at his Aunt Pam's house. When he walks in, his aunt isn't there, but Sherri runs to him, open arms, jumps on him, and wraps her arms around him. She hops off of him and leads him to the back bedroom and undresses. Keith is telling her that they need to talk, this is not the time to have sex, and asks if she has seen the 55-page document about her case. Sherri isn't listening, continues to try and take Keith's clothes off to have sex as if she's oblivious to what has happened the past week of their lives. Sherri tells him she wants to take a plea deal. The deal would be about 6 months with an ankle bracelet. She seems excited about saying it, and it's not a big deal since she stays home anyway. Keith was shocked, to say the least. He tells her he doesn't think it's a good idea, but all she wants in that moment is sex and doesn't seem to understand the shit she has put he and her family through. Keith leaves the house immediately and starts to come to terms with the fact that his wife ran away for funsies, basically, and that everything she has told him was a lie. Sherri did end up admitting to everything, including watching her own family search for her on her phone the 22 days she was missing. September 22nd, 2022, she was sentenced to 18 months in prison and $309,000 in restitution. So, why did she do this? We don't really have a solid answer. Investigators think that due to the money,
She's a sociopath.
that is a solid answer that I agree with. But investigators think that due to running out of money from her AT&T payout, the lifestyle she was used to was about to change, as Keith told her he would not pay for daycare if she would be staying at home, and that's what her AT&T money, the payout that she received from them, was going to. It was going to daycare, so she was at home all day. Investigators think that the only way she knew how to avoid this was to run away. Her sister thinks she wanted attention she wasn't receiving at home, and she wanted to feel important. Yeah. And just when you think she could not be a worse person. One day after Sherri was already in prison, Keith was putting his daughter to bed. When he went to get up, he groaned and touched his shoulder since he was sore from doing work around the house. His daughter asked him if he was sick, then if he was, he needed to do, quote, mommy's trick. Trigger warning for child abuse. She proceeds to tell her...
Mommy's trick? Oh, no.
Mommy's trick. She proceeds to tell her dad that when they were sick, Sherri would take a paper towel, toilet paper, or rags, drown it in rubbing alcohol, put it in a Ziploc bag, and tie a string around their necks to the Ziploc so that they would continue to smell the fumes. This would make them more sick so she could take them to the doctor. This did lead to a investigation.
Yeah.
Keith says that she hopped out of bed, went to the bathroom, got a piece of toilet paper, watered it up, knew exactly where the rubbing alcohol was, put the rubbing alcohol on it, and handed it to him and said, "Here, smell this."
Yeah.
Sherri was released from prison in 2023 and failed to appear in court for her divorce in 2024. Keith has sole custody of both children, and Sherri speaks to them on the phone weekly and has professionally supervised visitation once a month.
Ew.
Keith and Sherri do not have a relationship of any kind, and Keith's primary focus is on his children and to be the best dad that he can be, since his children have to grow up knowing their mother abandoned them and physically abused them. The scenes where Keith talks about his children breaks my heart, especially the rubbing alcohol thing. He has to stop. He is barely keeping it together. The whole documentary, his eyes are filled with tears. They have him looking through, Sherri took a lot of pictures. So they have him looking through scrapbooks and old photos, and she messed him up. She messed all of them up, but she is a monster.
Mommy's trick. Jeez.
I don't have this part written down, but the part that I said would probably make you more mad about the whole "I have to live with the fact that you didn't find me" thing. So Keith and some friends and family did not like the way that police were handling the situation, so they created their own little side investigation. James Reyes was the first person on their list, and they actually had a couple of people go down to his house and do surveillance to see if they noticed anything weird. So they were actually there, but a certain someone who I suspect is the FBI or police, they would not say who, basically told them not to waste their time with it, that they would get to it, and then it was skipped.
I roll.
Yes. So he did find her, technically. He just didn't know it. Also, she staged the whole thing, so it doesn't really matter. So, how are y'all feeling?
This bitch.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so with shit like this, I feel this may be a hot take, but honestly, I don't think so. If you have common sense, I feel like this is not a hot take. That was a bold statement. Anyway, if if you do shit like this, I feel like one, you should pay back all the shit that everyone had to spend.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, she does have over $300,000 in restitution she has to pay. And
Really?
yes.
But
So
is that bitch gonna pay it? Probably not.
Honestly,
Like, how does that work?
so if she signs any book deals, makes any money, I personally have never had to pay restitution. Crazy. I know. So I'm not exactly sure how it comes out, but I believe so any money that she makes will go directly to paying that balance, whether that is from book deals, movies, documentaries, or just her getting a job and working. I don't know if it comes out of
Mm.
checks
It is. Its
automatically.
wages are garnished.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh,
So
okay.
because she is young, I don't know what year she was born. Let's see.
I did look it up briefly during this, and she's, I want to say 40 something, like early 40s.
She's 42. Yeah. So she'll probably be able to pay it back, but the restitution goes to the people who donated money to her because I mean she had like a 30,000 something dollar GoFundMe.
Hmm.
Then also to the government for the search efforts.
Okay.
Hmm.
I okay. I feel a little better now, but not
Yeah.
really.
No,
Oh
it
yeah, no,
doesn't
it's
make
not
up for it.
shitty.
My
The
statement still stands.
this damage she has done not only to her now ex-husband but to her children is insane. So in the documentary there's like I said there's so many home videos and stuff. I really think it's cool to be honest how they set it up. It sucks that it even happened, but they did a good job with the documentary. There's a video where she's trying, do y'all watch oh gosh, First We Feast? What is it? Hot Ones. Do y'all watch Hot
Mm.
Ones? Okay.
I
Mhm.
watched it. Yeah.
You know Da Bomb?
Yeah.
Okay. She had Da Bomb hot sauce and they were trying it. So Keith is like, just put a little dab on your chicken or whatever it was. So she gets a little dab and she tries it and she starts coughing. I think like most people do because it's hot. And her son is right there and he starts like, mommy, mommy, like crying because he's scared something's gonna happen to her. It is heartbreaking. At the end of the documentary, also, Keith tells a story where they kind of just shoot around. He's like, so if you had to choose a different last name, what would you choose? And their son was like, does this have to do with mom? Like, I like our last name. I don't think we should have to change our last name because of what mom did. It's so sad.
Yeah, that kid is wrecked.
I believe they have therapy or they're in therapy, which they'll probably need therapy for life to cope with the fact that their mother abused and abandoned them. But they're
Kind of feels like the kid doesn't believe that.
I think because they were so young, possibly some of the things aren't remembered. I mean, clearly they are because of the fact that she started coughing from hot sauce and her son was sobbing, just scared for her. I think he probably remembers more than he would like. I'm sure the girl does as well. Clearly, there were things happening like mommy's trick behind the scenes, probably more things that we're just not aware of. Maybe they don't realize is bad that was happening. So I feel really bad for their kids, but I'm happy that they have Keith. Granted, obviously, I don't know Keith on a personal level. I just have what I see, but he seems to be a very active, very loving parent. And he's doing his best to make up for his shitty ex-wife. So he shouldn't have to. He is, and they seem happy as they can be.
Oh, that's so rough.
Mm-hmm. This is a rough one. And I also, this is random. I wasn't exactly sure. This is our first two-parter, and I was telling Chantelle before we actually started recording, I wasn't exactly sure how long either of the episodes were going to be. I just know that I was writing for a really long time, both times. So I won't make a part three because that seems to drag it out a little bit. But if I realized how long this episode would most likely be. I haven't edited it yet, but really don't have to do much. And how short it is, or how short the first part is comparison to this one, most likely. I would have evened it out a little better. But growing pains. Anywho, back to this. There's just a lot of information. I didn't want to try to squish it all because I wanted to give y'all, especially because there's news as recent as this year on her. If she wanted to feel important or to be known, she's definitely known now.
I'm a little concerned I've never heard about this.
I was a little surprised you hadn't, but I'm happy that you hadn't because I wanted reactions. I got them.
I'm just so glad nobody can see my face. That's all I'm gonna say.
Mhm. Yeah. It's like you think, wow, this one part of the story is really crazy, and then you remember something else she did. Like, we'll have to, if y'all want, maybe Sunday or something, or this weekend, we can watch the documentary. It's really good. But they
Yeah.
have all the videos of like the 911 call, which by the way, I don't know if it was just coincidence. Let me go up to my notes for the first part. But okay, whenever someone, the trucker found her, you can hear her in the background asking, "Did you call 911? I need an ambulance." The dispatcher asked if he can explain what's happening, to which he replies, "She's saying she got kicked out by her boyfriend." It's probably coincidence, but it's just one of those things where it's like, also just the little things, little details. Like she couldn't see what they were using to brand her, but she thinks it was a craft tool.
Oh, and lo and behold, it was a craft tool.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Or the Exodus that was branded onto her back. There was a portion where she was asked about it, and she goes, "I think it says Exodus. I don't know. It's some weird verse in the Bible or something. I don't know." And it's just like, all right. It's very heartbreaking to watch the documentary and see how upset, Keith, his face was all over the place, how just devastated he is that his wife is gone. And then knowing that she just sat there in that room, like munching on some popcorn or something, like, hell yeah, everyone knows me now. Then the damage she did to Hispanic community, Mexican community. And then whenever you return to that, it's like the description of things, like the names she gave the characters. It just
Yeah,
makes
obviously
it
erased it.
more, yeah, it makes it, I don't know if it could get worse, but it makes it worse. And then describing, like, there was a quote that she said that was aired on the news about saying they would play, quote, stupid mariachi music or something like that, something to that effect, like stupid mariachi music or annoying
Mm-hmm.
stupid mariachi music, one of the two. And it was like aired on the news, and it's just like, it makes me cringe. And then the food she was described, like how she would react to black beans being on her plate, you know? And the fact that she did absolutely mess up her husband
Yeah.
in the beginning with, "Oh, I went missing." But then the fact that she made him sleep with the lights on, the fact that she made him, cook food in front of her, would refuse food if it wasn't cooked in front of her, even if he cooked it, like those tiny little things. And I'm sure we don't know even a quarter of it, to be
All
honest.
the manipulative shit, that's just disgusting.
And that's just from
Gaslighting.
that. Yeah, yeah. The gaslighting. Whenever the investigators confront her, she goes, what was it? "Look at what they're doing to you. They're messing with your head." It's just
It's disgusting.
absolutely. There's one part, I don't remember. I'm sure I read it, but there's one part also that whenever she was, quote, kidnapped and they reached their destination, uh she was put in a closet, and they gave her a bucket to use. And she told them, "Why don't y'all put kitty litter in it? Why don't y'all put kitty litter in here so it's less mess for y'all?" And they were like, "Oh, you're right. You're so smart," basically, and started putting kitty litter in her imaginary bucket in her imaginary scenario. So she included things like that. Let me see if I can find the quote. I believe it's in that 55-page document. Okay. Papini's abductors provided her with a bucket, initially described as a trash can for her to use as a toilet. Papini suggested to her abductors that they put kitty litter in the bucket. Quote, "I tried to say, if you line it with a bag and put kitty litter in it, it would probably make your job a little easier." Papini's abductors took her advice and lined the bucket with kitty litter.
Such considerate kidnappers.
Right? How smart is she? Wow.
Hey, you could do better with your treatment of me, I guess. I don't know.
Her imaginary kidnappers took her imaginary advice to make their imaginary work easier.
Sounds about right.
This is so sick.
Yes. And then, like, another just tiny detail that drives me crazy. And I don't know, maybe I'm just reading too much into it, But whenever she describes their shower as an inexpensive shower head, it's like pushing a narrative, I guess, about the type of people that abducted her that
Mhm.
don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just I spoke about it briefly, but white woman syndrome, I don't know if that was a term before her kidnapping or after or what. I don't know when that term originated. But this is a excellent example of white woman syndrome or white woman kidnapping. White woman syndrome, one of the two.
Syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh, pretty blonde hair, blue-eyed girl, woman goes missing and she gets thousands of dollars of reward money for any tips.
Mm-hmm.
FBI, local police broadcast it across the nation. Meanwhile, people of color can barely get an article in the newspaper.
Yeah. It's been around way before this
Yeah, I kind of
case,
figured.
but it's definitely something that is more talked about now.
Yeah, yeah. There was, have you all ever heard of, I think her name is pronounced Tara, Tera Smith. Not a well-known case. I mean, maybe it is, but I've never heard of her.
Oh, where she was from somewhere in California, right? Like she disappeared like almost 3 decades ago.
Yes. So she was 16 years old whenever she went missing. She's the same age as Sherri Papini, went to the same high school, went missing in 1998. This again, like this story gives me goosebumps and not in a, "Ooh, I'm excited or I can't wait to see what happens type of way, but I'm so angry and I just feel so bad for the people involved in her life. So, Tara Smith went missing in 1998. She went to the same school as Sherri and was the same age. Their disappearances, Sherri, although planned, Tara's was not, were very, very similar. Sherri willingly went and met with the family of Tara Smith whenever she had returned home, talking about, like, oh my gosh, let me find it exactly. Basically, Sherri's quote disappearance brought Tara Smith's case back into the light. So the families met and had like a
And hers was real?
yes, she is still missing,
Ugh.
but she
Oh my
willingly went
God.
and met with her family. Sherri had dinner at Marilyn and Terry's house at one point after her return.
I'm disgusted. Oh my God.
I think
That's just vile.
yes. I think possibly like Sherri being able like finding her way home gave hope to their family possibly. Yeah, Sherri and Tara both pretty blondes attended the same high school in the 90s and they each vanished near the old Oregon Trail not far from each other's or far from either of their homes. The only good thing about Sherri's case is that it brought light to Tara Smith's case again.
Yeah.
That's it. That's literally the only positive thing to come out of this.
Which I want to be like, yes, that's great, but also you sack of shit.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's kind of like that's my gut reaction. It's just like, oh, that's good, that's wonderful. You absolute abject bitch.
Yeah.
Okay. The Smith family felt a connection to Sherri's case because it mirrored their own tragic experience. They hoped for a positive outcome for Sherri, which they never had for Tara. She is a incredibly sick, disturbed, demented, horrible person. And then she willingly, like I said, I can't find the actual section in the documentary, but she willingly took her husband over there to play the I know what it's like card. If I'm remembering correctly, he feels sick about going there, having dinner with them.
Mm.
Like I'm imagining my spouse lied to me and put me in these weird situations to where I've lied to people now or misled them unintentionally.
Do we like we know he is like trying to help these kids, but do we know where like what is she doing? Is she living her best life? Like what is
I believe she's in a halfway house. Like she got released from prison to a halfway house. But we can Google real quick.
She is.
Okay.
Because like I I kind of the Carla Homolka comes to mind, to be honest.
Yeah.
Got out of jail, living her best damn life.
Yep. And the other, like, there's like I said, there's some little things I just didn't include individually and just kind of summed it up. So the community really came together and was like, we gotta find her. But they also like small businesses, like there was a printing business who made hundreds of have you seen me signs type of things, billboards, like
Jeez.
all kinds of stuff, posters put everywhere to try to find her. And they didn't charge anything. It goes
Of
back,
course not.
yeah, it goes back to white woman syndrome and then just how she took advantage of everybody. I'm sure
Mhm.
part of that restitution is going to that stuff too, but it still
I
doesn't
mean,
make up for it.
no, it doesn't.
I mean, in all honesty, like, yes, you should absolutely have to pay back the money, but it does still no amount of money is going to make up for that mental damage you have
No.
now
Uh-uh.
given all of these people.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if like I know in the documentary her family is like, well, of course we love her. You can't like that's your kid, your sister. I feel I personally have not been put in this situation to know how I would react and feel, but I do imagine that it's hard just to be like, switch, okay, I don't like you. Don't ever talk to me. Like you have love for people, even the ones that do you wrong, depending on the relationship, but you're really
You
those
can have,
children. My heart hurts for them.
yeah, you can have love for someone you thought you knew,
Yes,
but still
exactly.
hate the person they actually are.
Wow. Shanty spitting wisdom.
It's
Coming
true.
in with the facts.
You are. That's really good. I'm gonna write that down. That's gonna be our subtitle.
Anyone can pretend to be anything they want, but at the
Hmm.
end of the day, if you're a shitty person, guess what? You're a shitty fucking person.
Yes. The amount of effort it would take to have these false triggers, too. It's just, this
Yeah.
must have been exhausting for everybody involved. Not
And
just,
honestly, including her.
oh, yeah, yeah. I like trying to keep your story straight, and I don't know. I can't lie about shit. I'm a bad liar. You can see it in my face. You can see it. You can hear it in my voice. I am not a good liar. I am not
Mm-hmm.
sneaky. I am a rule follower. I tell on myself. Like either it's me sending a message to my boss, "Hey, before you listen to this call and you hear that I forgot this, I forgot that." Or, "Hey, don't listen to this call because it was a car wreck. It's just a mess." So
Yeah.
Cheston I'll try to be sneaky, not in like a deceptive I'm trying to harm you, but like just a playful like, no, I didn't do that. Or I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to play a joke on him or something. It never works. I'm like giggling. I can't stop smiling. Like my eyes give it away. I can't make eye contact. I'm not a good little sneaky person. But I just exhausting. And then at some point, do you think she believed this? At
No,
some
I
point?
think it was all just attention getting.
Yeah, but do you think that she convinced herself, I can't have the door shut, that's too scary. I can't. The door shut's scary. Or, like maybe after I'm not justifying anything she's done. Let me make that super clear. I think she's a shitty person. She deserves 1,000 paper cuts and to use hand sanitizer. Spill coffee on her white shirts, step on 100 Legos, and stub her toe every day.
And may the fleas of 1,000 camels infest her fruit and vegetables.
Yes. Like she deserves nothing good. Nothing good.
But to
I
answer your roundabout question, no, I think it was all a power trip. And to pardon my French, but I think she got off on it.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I can see, honestly, I can see a bit of both sides. I think if you want to convince yourself of something, you can convince yourself of it.
Yeah.
Um, so if, if a door closing is going to cause that much of a reaction, at some point, your brain is going to switch a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but fucking sick.
Yes. Yes, she is. There's just so many little things. And then being released on bond, calling your husband and just trying to take his clothes off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just disgusting right there.
It's all her. I just feel so bad for her kids. And I feel bad for Keith. Like I said, I only know a small fraction of who he is as a person, but it seems like everywhere that I have read, he's been nothing but supportive and tries to be the best dad that he can be. I would be shocked if he ever develops any type of romantic, personal relationship with another person because of the damage she has done.
Honestly, I hope he does, but
Yeah,
goddamn, that's gonna be a rough fucking road. And it's not his
absolutely.
fault.
No, not at all.
Her ex-boyfriend,
They don't talk. I don't think they have any contact.
did he have anything like, did he get in shit for this?
I don't believe so because
Because I
he
kind of
didn't
feel like
hold
he
her.
should.
He didn't hold her hostage in any way, shape, or form.
But he knew though,
Technically,
no?
he knew because she was there.
Like I know you can't be in shit for being like you can't there's no law against being a shitty person. But
Yeah.
I feel like that's a fine line.
Let's
Yeah.
see.
Like if you know someone has this plan, they're executing it, sending you all the details, telling you how it's gonna go, causing this like uproar. I'm sorry, but you should also have some part in being in shit for it.
He's maintained a low profile. He didn't have any trouble with the law in the past and previously used to work at a skate store in Costa Mesa. However, according to the last reports, James is currently living in Arizona alongside his grandfather and pet dog. I mean,
Take that dog away from him.
let's see. Like I said, technically, the only thing he didn't do is call and say, hey, she stayed at my house, which honestly, I know we're decent and good people. So we wouldn't have done this in the first place. But imagine you are helping your friend out of what they tell you is an abusive relationship. She's reported missing or they're reported missing, but you think it's just because the husband, is like, she's gone, she's disappeared. Then, whenever she decides to go home, you start seeing reports about how she was tortured and beaten. Outside looking in, I think it would have put him in trouble. I think she would have been caught faster, but I do think he would have had so much heat put on him as far as like she could have just turned it around and said, no, he did this. He did this to me. He beat me. He locked me up. It's because he
Mm,
loves me. So I can't really necessarily fault him for not wanting to come out immediately and say it was me. She was with me the whole time because I can imagine although law tries their best if it is a publicized hot case, they just want to close it. So if they can pin it on somebody, historically, they have done that.
and also, hot take, a woman's
Oh yeah.
voice
Yeah, I
over a
wasn't gonna say it.
man.
I'm glad one of the
Mm-hmm.
two of you
I
did.
said
Yeah.
it.
No. Yeah. Exactly. She like if you saw a beaten, battered woman who had no issues in the past, has a loving husband, children, just crying, all it would take is him walking into the same room and her
Oh,
falling to the
just
ground, screaming, crying, "Get him away from me!" And the public would be like, "Oh my God, it's
just
her."
one phone call.
Yep. This is gotta be. This is gonna be our longest episode. We have never had to end a Zoom meeting 4 times. Wait, 3 times. This is number 4.
So when some of them have ended, sometimes it gives you the option to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Yep.
And
Don't thumbs down
listen,
me.
nothing wrong with, Zoom, the meeting. nothing technical. Just the story.
I was gonna say the
really.
topics.
I was so tempted to hit thumbs down.
Well, thanks for not. I don't know if I would say anything if I were in James Rhea's position either.
Hmm.
Not until someone came to my door. He fully cooperated. Actually,
Yeah.
uh, in the documentary, the police came to his door, right? And his pet bird flew out. So then the police had to help him get his pet bird back inside.
Please sell my butter.
Yep. But yeah, so that she sucks. Well, she more than sucks, but I don't really have many nice things to say. Actually, I have nothing nice to say about her.
Yeah, sucks is very polite,
Yeah,
but she sucks.
she do. Anything, y'all?
She's a real CW.
She is a real CW. We're gonna have people messaging us. What is CW?
We can't tell you.
We can't say, but let us know your thoughts on what you think CW stands for.
I'm interested. Also, I know I've already said this, but I'm so sorry for the weirdly proportioned parts because this one's gonna be long. Easily hour and a half.
Grab a snack, a drink, I don't know, re-listen to it.
Yeah, yeah. Listen to part one. If you are listening to part two right now and you have not listened to part one, I said this at the beginning too, but if you have listened all the way through part two, not listening to part one yet, are you okay?
Who hurt you?
We have
If you're
questions.
still here, are you okay?
And thank you. I mean,
Thank
regardless,
you.
you can listen to anything in whatever order you want as long as you hit that download button.
However, we might judge you for listening to it out of order.
Yeah, but we don't have to know, I guess. Well,
Just don't tell us.
yes, yes. So, do we have any other comments, statements? Did y'all find anything in our few minutes of a break between letting the audio download?
I am not gonna lie, I still think I'm still in like,
Shock?
yeah.
Disgust?
Disgust. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
It'll settle over the next couple of days, and then I'm sure we'll get a message about it saying, why did you do this case? But
I want to watch the documentary, honestly.
okay, I'm down. I hope I did the story some justice. I think I did. I don't think there's much
so.
more information that you could find that I didn't mention. Like I said, some things I left out, like itty bitty teeny tiny things, but then we covered them post research talk. So,
Hmm.
but if there is something I missed, or maybe something I had backwards, please leave us comments on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. I don't use Twitter. Shanti has Twitter, so Twitter as well.
Find me on our Twitter. Let's go.
Yes. Because if there is ever a case where we do not give correct information or we mix something up, we have no issue swallowing whatever pride we do have to correct that. So,
I mean, I'll probably be grouchy, but you know.
I might go,
Who do you
but that's
think
about
you
it.
are? Yeah.
That's about it. We will never get mad or upset about someone correcting something as long as they are giving
As long
correct
as you're
information.
right. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
if you're wrong and we're not, I'm going to be mad that you wasted my time.
exactly. We had to read that comment. But with that being said, I think it's outro time, finally. Anyone want to do the outro? Was she too stunned to speak? Or he?
I'm sorry, I am. I won't
Thank you all
lie.
so much for listening to our podcast. As always, you can find any pictures pertaining to the story posted on our Instagram and Twitter at CYRTpod and on our Facebook page. Be sure to rate and review us wherever you listen, as rating helps us out a ton. If you have any topic suggestions or want to share a story of your own, then please send us an email at cyrtpod@gmail.com. Until next time.
Sorry for the emotional damage.
Emotional damage.
All right. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.